always I try to ask not to show violence, but ask something about violence. It's for this I play with the fear, the climax of violence, but it's not useful for me to show violence. It's more important to think about violence.
Hello, and welcome back to The Director's Cut, brought to you by the Directors Guild of America. In this episode, director Philippe Lacôte takes us behind the scenes of his new drama from Ivory Coast, Night of the Kings. Set in Ivory Coast's MACA prison, an institute ruled by its inmates, the film tells the story of an ailing inmate king who assigns a young new prisoner to entertain the population with stories, but the ritual storyteller must keep the tales going all night long or forfeit his own life. Night of the Kings was screened as part of the DGA's Global Cinema Series, which aims to spotlight landmark foreign films by presenting screenings of contemporary, classic, and independent films, as well as conversations with their directors. Night of the Kings earned Mr. Lacôte the Amplify Voices Award at the 2020 Toronto International Film Festival, and was the official submission of Ivory Coast for Best International Feature Film at the 93rd Academy Awards. His other directorial credits include the feature films Run and African Metropolis, the documentaries Chronicles of War in the Ivory Coast and Cairo Hours, and episodes of the documentary miniseries Slavery Roots. Following the Global Cinema Series screening of the film at the DGA Theater in Los Angeles, Mr. Lacôte spoke with director Alex Stapleton about filming Night of the Kings via video from Ivory Coast. Listen on for their spoiler-filled conversation.
We want to thank you. It is 3:30 in the morning.
Yeah.
Well, I think that the audience, the members here, had a lovely time watching this film. Maybe lovely is not the right word, but so I just wanted to dive right in so we don't keep you up all in the middle of the night. So I wanted to start with the open, the first scene of the film, because it does so much. From the start, you lay the groundwork of the rules of this society that we're about to be immersed in. And it feels like the perfect way to shed judgment about the world that we're about to enter. Can you talk about setting a story in a place like the MACA? And what did you want to convey about the community there?
First, I will say that thank you for this invitation. First, I will say that I know La MACA for a long time. Since I was child, 7, 8 years old, because my mother was in La MACA as a political prisoner during 1 year. So I traveled one day by week to go to see my mother in a collective taxi crossing this forest, because La MACA is inside the forest. And I kept a very strong image of this place. For me, La MACA is a very open prison. So as a visitor, you can meet some prisoner. A prisoner can eat your bread. A prisoner can take your newspaper. So there was a lot of interaction like this when I was a child. And for me, La MACA was like a kingdom with lakeys, with king, with queens. And I wanted to give this image because it was very visual and very strong. And 5 years ago, I met a friend, a childhood friend. He was out La MACA, and he told me that they have a real practice in La MACA. They choose a prisoner, they call him roman, novel, and he is obliged to tell stories each night. And when he told me this story, it was directly connected with my family story, and I decided to make Night of the Kings.
So immensely interesting. And the character of Roman, I'm sorry, my French is not good, and I'm going to butcher every name. His character, even the ride into the prison, there were cues that it felt almost like you were knowing the story about you and that you visited the prison as a child. It almost feels like he is this youth, that is, you don't know where, at the beginning of the film, you don't know why he's going there, but you hear the shouting but you hear the sounds of nature. And it really, how much of your own childhood experience did you bring into kind of navigating the cues that you hear and that you see coming into that space?
I know, as a visitor, I would say, I know enough La MACA, and I visited lot of friends, some brothers. I have a connection with prison as a visitor. So, and for me, the most important things was to observe La MACA as a complete society, with his code, with his law, with his beliefs, and usually when we speak about prison, it's to say that they are bad guys, they need more punishment, or they are good guys, they need less punishment. It was not my view, my point of view in this thing. My point of view was to observe a society, to observe how the succession will be done with a chief, with sick, and with pretenders, with fighters, and observe all details, how prisoners they communicate with paper, how they have also sex, what is the desire in a prison, what's mean to have a desire in a prison. We can see this with the sexy, the transgenre character. We can see this with Roman, because Roman is like a mirror of all this desire in this prison.
And with La MACA being so centered to the story, did you shoot there on location? How did you recreate, or what was your approach to the location?
We didn't want to shoot in La MACA, even if it was possible, because we thought that it was too complicated for shooting, about security, about everything. So we shot the exterior, the beginning of the film. We are around the real MACA. When Roman, my main character, is in a car. And after the title of the film, Night of the Kings, La Nuit des Rois, we are our decor. We rebuilt La MACA in Grand Bassam, a colonial city near Abidjan, 1 hour from Abidjan. We took 2 colonial buildings and we made this long corridor. And
With the story of Zama King, how much was based on reality, and how much was from your writing?
Zama King is a real character. Zama King is a real character. He's dead now. It was a young boy in Abidjan who was prepared mystically by his father. His father was not a blind man, but his father had a sort of handicap, physically handicapped. So I made a blind man, but he was prepared mystically by his father. After this, in 2011, when the rebellion started in Ivory Coast, he became the best boy of the rebellion. And when after the rebellion, he didn't succeed to become a soldier, to have a job as a soldier. So he became a gang leader. He becomes the gang leader of microbes, the microbes. The microbes, it's a gang leader who is very dangerous in Abidjan. It's young people, 8 to 18, and they took their name from the Brazilian film City of God, because this film is very famous in Ivory Coast, but they watch this film with no distance, and they want to make the same film on the street. So this is the life of Zama King. Finally was lynched by the population. So I try to tell the real life of Zama King, because I made a lot of research and I met some his friends, is very near friends, but in my way.
In your way. How, one thing that was fascinating to me was your approach to making a film that's based on a very violent reality, but that has such little violence actually in the film. That was really powerful for me, because it forced me to really see the characters and to kind of not get distracted by just gratuitous violence. And I wanted to ask you, was that, how intentional was that on your part?
Yeah, it is intentional. My work in Ivory Coast started in 2002. I arrived in Abidjan to make a documentary about a friend who was dead in La MACA, and his name is Blackbird. So there is a continuity, and I wanted to make a documentary about my childhood friend, and this sort of lost generation. And 3 days later, the rebellion of 2002 started, and I become a sort of reporter of this careful, this situation. And I continue this work in my first feature run, and now in Night of the Kings. So my main question is about violence in my country. And Night of the Kings is a fight between violence and words and stories. And who is more stronger? And always I ask myself about violence. When I watched the image of when they lynch Zama King, the real Zama King, when they lynch him and they put this image on social media, because Zama King, his body disappeared. They burnt him, they cut him, and when I saw this image, and I watched this image, and I asked myself, after 2 years after a civil war, what's happened in this society? So always I try to ask, not to show violence, but ask something about violence. It's for this I play with the fear, the climax of violence, but it's not useful for me to show violence. When Blackbird say, okay, he said to Roman, it's important for us, and try to tell your stories, it's enough. It's enough. So I play with the atmosphere of violence, but it's not useful for me to show violence. It's more important to think about violence.
It's much more powerful, and it leaves you in utter suspense, and it's a reflection. I mean, especially being an American, where we make a lot of movies that have a lot of violence in them, and it's so a part of our culture.
Yeah.
It was shocking. I think as an audience member, it was very interesting to almost expect that, and then it makes you think as an audience member, like, why am I expecting that to happen? And it says something about us as a community.
Yeah. What I want to add on this point, I will say that I took this atmosphere of violence from Sherazade, 1001 Arabian Nights, because when you have this death, this death sentence to say, if you stop your story, you will die. Never stop your story until the day. It's the best cliffhanger we have in the century.
Yes. How would you explain? You kind of talked about your past career, and I wanted to ask you about your pathway to filmmaking, but I'm also interested in knowing what is the filmmaking community like in Ivory Coast, and how has it changed? Perhaps since even from your last or from your first feature run.
There is not a real cinema industry in Ivory Coast because it's a small country, cinematography speaking, and we had a political and military conflict during 10 years, so it's a new start. But we have an history of cinema with maybe 8, 9 directors who are very important: Henri Duparc, Roger Nwangibala, Désiré Carré. And now there's some young people, some young directors who are very talented, but they work more in TV series because it's not easy to build an international co-production. But when we think about cinema here, we don't think only about Ivory Coast. We think about West Africa. And we have today in Senegal Mati Diop with Atlantic, with Alain Gomis, with Felicity. He was in the shortlist, this last year's Oscar shortlist. and we have Abderrahman Sissako in Mauritania. So all this director comes from West Africa, and I will say that there's new narrative today, maybe including more our culture, our view, our perception of reality.
That's what I wanted to actually talk about next. Is where do you, as a filmmaker, draw the line, especially having a story that, maybe the origin is based in reality, but there's so many magical elements and fantasy elements that are in this film. How do you weave reality with magical realism? How do you approach that?
Thank you. First, I will say that magical realism it's a term I use when I am in Europe or when I am in America. For us in West Africa, in Ivory Coast, it's our reality. There is no magical realism. We live in a reality with three levels. For us, the border between magical things, realistic things, the border between invisible world, visible world, dead people, alive people, this border is very fine, and we cross it very easily.
You're getting a very good reaction here with that answer. Truth. You also, your work is, there's so many different elements that you use to storytell, and to me it feels a bit of like a collage almost. And I'm a documentarian, and as a documentarian, I'm fascinated with the fact that you even have archival play in this world. How do you weave those things together, and when do you know? How do you figure out the magic recipe that works?
I'm as some people are hyperactive, I'm a hyper narrative. Yeah, it's my way of seeing the world. Everything is a story for me. Even a list of shopping list is a story for me. If I take each shopping list, we can create a life of a person with this shopping list. So for me, I want to tell different stories in one story, and I spent a lot of time to making it better, to making works a little, because it's not easy to have different stories and to tell the story with different material, with formal material. But I'm a mix of different things. I started by fiction. I made a 3 short film in 35 millimeters, black and white, in France, with a DOP who was from Bulgaria and who had a big influence of expressionism and Soviet Russian cinema. And after this, I was documentarist during 10 years, reporter, documentarist, and after I come back to fiction. So, yes, you spoke about collage. It's a collage. It's a collage of different influences. There's my part. For me, cinema is true. Cinema have something with the reality. Cinema is true. So even if I want to make something magical, the prison of Night of the King must be true. The prisoner must be true. It's not a fable about prisoners. Prisoners, their bodies is real. And so I go always by the reality to go to magical things.
I want to kind of move into the craft of your filmmaking approach, and I've read a lot of interviews about your process. But one thing I wanted to know more about was your process in the edit. How much, especially since you wrote this story, what is the editing process like for you? And do you allow story to take place in the edit? Do you have discovery in the edit, or you kind of have your roadmap and you stick to it?
Editing is very important for me. For Night of the Kings, I wanted to be in a new situation, so I decided, because I have a Canadian co-producer, Quebec. I decided to make the editing with an editor I didn't know. Only one Zoom session, who was very, very nice and very, very deep. Aube Foglia, she's from Quebec, she's Canadian, and we worked in Montreal. I made all the post-production in Montreal because I wanted to, I had two choices, work in France or work in Canada. And for me, the cinema of genre is not very strong in France. There is not a real knowledge of genre cinema. And even if Night of the Kings is not a pure genre, but I play with this code, and I need some technicians, some collaborators who knows this genre and who knows this code. So I decided to come near US, to go to American continent, yeah, and yeah, and the editing started before me, because we were in a short time. First, we wanted to go to Cannes Film Festival. Finally, there was not Cannes. Cannes was cancelled, and we went to Venice, and we were very happy for this. Yeah. But for me, editing is first, I will say that everything is very written. Everything is very written. I have a script, and this script speaks about sound, about visual, about clothes, about everything. It's a sort of partition. It's a sort of a continuity who has everything. So when I arrived on editing, the main thing for me is always the script, to follow the script, to follow the emotion of the script. And I will say that I spent a lot of time to find the mystery of each character. This is the most important thing for me, because we know very quickly. We know the structure. We know what shot is good, what shot is not good. But how to develop the character in the film to catch his mystery. For example, when you have this scene of Guantanamo with Sexy, after this scene, when this scene was break by the arrival of Roman, and they take Roman and they go on stairs. I fight with my editor, because after this scene of humiliation, I wanted necessary to have the face of Sexy. It was important for me. It was a sort of dignity. I didn't want to continue like this. Yeah. So editing is a morality for me.
The other, kind of, I wanted to talk about your approach working with actors, and what was the casting process like, and how did you find Roman, and how did I can't even imagine. There's just so many elements that are happening with him, and as he arcs as a character and has the performers come and assist him. How did you choreograph all that?
Yeah. Okay. I started cinema in France. I made my short film in France. And I think I moved to Ivory Coast because it was impossible for me to make a feature in France without main actors, famous actors, and for me who are very tired. But it's my opinion, and I decided, yeah. Because always you see the same actors in the same stories, and it's a system. It's a system who can finance your film, but you will not get something very new inside this system. It was my opinion. So I moved to Ivory Coast because I'm more free and I'm more necessary in Ivory Coast. and in Ivory Coast, as I said before, there is no film industry. So you have not an agency of actors. You have different actors, but they came from theaters. They came from cinema comedy. They came from different way. And you need to unify this acting. You need to unify. So my way of working here, I call some actors, professional actors from West Africa, like Isaka Savadogo, Rasmane Wadago, who plays the blind man, for example. He's a famous actor. He played with Idrissa Ouedraogo, a famous director from Burkina Faso. He played with Dardenne Brothers in Europe. So I call some actors. I believe in them. They are very strong. They have a real experience and a real humanity to lead something. And after this, for Night of the Kings, with my director, Johan Richemont, with my casting director, Johan Richemont, who is Ivorian, we spent 2 years in different suburbs in Abidjan.
Wow.
We saw maybe 2,000 young people.
Wow.
Yeah. And finally, we selected 40 young people, martial art fighters, dancers, singers, first young actors, and we made a workshop during 2 months. And everything happens in this workshop. Yeah, we define all this choreography in this workshop. The Scorpio, the Queen, the choreography of the Queen, the mystical fight. So when you are in the circle of Roman, this arena in the prison, the two first lines, they know exactly what will happen. Extras, they are beyond these 2 lines. Yeah. So they know exactly when you have this guy with his shirt, with his T-shirt, Brazil, who enter and who takes the speech. He played this maybe 50 times during this workshop. But I didn't want to make something preview. I wanted to make something like an improvisation. So when we arrived on the set, we tried to work to make it very fluent, very natural. I didn't want to have dancers. I wanted to have prisoners, inmates, and after they will become dancers. And by this way, we found Kone Bakari, who plays Roman. Kone Bakari arrived the first day. He said the poetry, and we said, no, thank you, bye-bye, you are nice, bye. And after 1 minute, the casting director went to say him to come back because he was very timid. And we said, okay, we will try again. And finally, he becomes the main character. But there was something strange with him because it was his first time to play. And his trajectory was a parallel with Roman, who doesn't know how to tell a story at the beginning. So we used the situation of the actor to feed, to give something to the situation of the role.
And you guys also shared you were in the same house during filming too.
Yeah. He was with me in the same house near the beach, and before the shooting, I felt that his voice was not very strong. So each morning we had a training in front of Atlantic Ocean. Yeah, and but it's a good experience for him finally.
Well, I wanted to kind of end with your thoughts. There was a quote from you. You said, African culture and Black culture must take its place. And I just, I wanted to thank you for making an inspirational film like this. I'm Creole, but grew up in Texas, and we have a culture too of tall tales and living, the line is very blurred between reality and myth. And it was so inspirational to watch a film from you all the way across the world. but to ingest it as as an American. And I think that it's really inspirational to, you created a body of work that's like a mirror to ourselves. And so I wanted to thank you. I guess I'm not ending completely with a question, but I just wanted to tell you how meaningful and deep the impact of this film was over here.
Thank you.
And that's an applause. That's a big applause for you. Everyone is very happy. And I think we're going to wrap it up. Is there anything else that you would like to?
No, I want to say only that this film is also a tribute to our African oral tradition, our storytellers, griots in West Africa.
Well, thank you.
Thank you.
Thanks for listening to another DGA Q&A. If you'd like to hear more from our Global Cinema series, check out episode 247, featuring director Pedro Almodovar discussing his film Pain and Glory with Kenneth Lonergan. You can find past episodes of The Director's Cut wherever you listen to podcasts. And be sure to subscribe, rate, and review. We'd love to hear your feedback, and you can help fellow film buffs find the show. Thanks again for listening, and have a great week. This podcast is produced by the Directors Guild of America. Music is by Dan Wally.